Welcome, welcome, everyone, to this week's podcast. And I'm really excited for today's conversation because I have a friend joining me who we met a couple of years ago. When is it, a year ago or a couple of years ago? It
Yes.
feels like I've known you for a while, and I can't quite believe it has actually taken us this long to get to this point. But I've got Emmy joining me today. I'm going to let Emmy introduce herself and tell you all about herself in a second, but I think she's incredible. And we're going to be talking about a product that she has literally just launched on the market, which I think is going to benefit you. And if you have kids, your kids too. But we have so much, we have such lovely conversations that this is just going to be delightful, even if we don't even mention hero cards. But we've
Yeah.
mentioned hero cards now. So even if they don't come up, go and
Tick.
Google hero cards, but they will. So, Emmy, do you want to start by telling us who you are, where you
Yeah.
came from?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. This is such a delight. So my name is Emmie Fulton, and I am a psychologist and a mum of three. I have three daughters, identical twin girls, and an older one, 10 and 13. And I have had a kind of varied career, I guess. I've worked in lots of different areas. I worked in the NHS and in adult mental health services. I've also worked at universities doing research for Public Health England. And then more recently, I've worked for kind of organizations and corporates consulting on kind of behavioral science and behavior change, health behavior change. Always had a real passion for sort of mental health and well-being, especially from years of working in the NHS, seeing the kind of back end of it. And so prevention. And now, yes, I've always wanted to have my own business. And I decided in sort of lockdown, as many people did, to pivot and do something a little bit different. I'm raising my kids on my own. So I felt I needed something that had that flexibility. So I wanted to create a product that I sort of encompassed everything that I've ever done, I guess, in all my different hats and roles. In one thing, and that's what I'm launching now. So yes, new learning curve.
Yes.
Exciting.
And this is the first time doing a podcast interview, isn't it? So
Absolutely, my first
welcome.
one. Very excited, thank you.
Thank you for letting me be the one to bring you into the podcasting world.
I feel in very safe hands, so this is yeah, it's a pleasure.
Lovely. Yes, I don't intend to make it a miserable
No,
experience anyway.
knowing you, Nikki, I knew that wouldn't happen. It would be yeah,
Yeah.
wonderfully enjoyable.
And it was funny because before we came on, just before I hit record, we were talking about life not being perfect, weren't we? And how actually you know, we haven't shown up today looking polished and perfect and with all the makeup because actually one of the things that I love is that we embrace our imperfections. Life is not supposed to be perfect, and neither ever is that our goal.
Yes, no, absolutely. I believe in that so wholeheartedly. It's one of the wonderful things as I get older, you sort of care less, don't you? And there's that sense of, and there's a relief in that. I think, in my 20s, I would have been, yeah, spending hours doing the makeup, but now, I can survive and feel quite empowered without having to go down that route. And it's a big thing with my kids. We're always talking about, there's no such thing as perfect. Everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
definitely a big part of what I'm trying to do with my work and my home life.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So let's talk a little bit about hero cards. Tell us what they are and like the journey that inspired you specifically to create them.
Yes. So basically, in a nutshell, hero cards are everything that I used to teach to adult patients in the NHS adapted for children. And for years, I thought, why are we not teaching this to kids? So basically, I had patients coming to see me with 10, 20, 30, 40 years of patterns of thinking and coping that weren't serving them. And when we would then look at alternative ways to think and to cope, they'd always say, why has no one taught me this before? I should have learned this years ago. And, yeah, it made me feel that, this is so important that children learn this. There's fantastic stuff out there now for children, and there has been in the last 20 years. Gosh, I've been working for 25 years now in this field. We've moved on leaps and bounds with kind of emotional awareness and literacy and mindfulness and stress management and all that stuff, which is great. But I've never seen anything that goes deeper, that really gets to the underlying kind of stuff around how you think and mindset, and because it affects everything, every part
Yeah.
of a child and all of our lives. The way we
Yeah.
think is how we feel, and what we do, they're all interlinked. And so, yeah, I just wanted to put all of that, to package it up in a way that kids would find engaging and enjoyable. So they're supersized cards that kids can use on their own or with help from parents or teachers. But it's all very simple. They just choose a color and they pick a hero. They take that hero on some kind of unusual adventure where the hero will experience some kind of everyday life challenge. So things like loss, anxiety, frustration, anger, jealousy, and then there are emotion cards to explore. So what does that child think the hero might be feeling? And there's no right or wrong answer there, because we all experience life in different ways and have different emotions. But kids are encouraged to think, what might they notice in their body? What might be running through their mind? How might they feel as they learn about different emotions? And then we have the power stealers, and these are the things that we all do, adults included, to cope, because no one gave us an alternative when we were
Yes.
younger. So that's things like distraction, avoidance, people pleasing, perfectionism, worrying, using humor. There's 10 of those, and we're not trying to demonize those at all. They can help us to begin with, but they're obviously not so great in the long term. They don't sort the problem, and they often come with more problems. So it's helping kids be aware of when they might be doing those. And then the most important thing is fifth card, which are the superpowers, and they are the alternative. So what can we do instead? And this
Yeah.
is things for mind, things for body, things for action, all science-based. So bits of cognitive behavioral therapy, but other techniques as well, all adapted for children. So that's, yeah,
So
basically
good.
it is in a nutshell.
Yeah, I love it so much because you're right. Like when I take my clients through the process of looking at their emotions and I'm like, where in your body do you feel it? Is it hot? Is it cold, fast or slow? Just that process of looking at it takes
Mm,
away its power. But
yes.
there's this element of confusion on people's faces. They're like, what do you mean, where do I feel it in my body? Because no one actually tells us
No. No.
that what no one tells us that our emotions are harmless either. We
Yeah.
all think we feel anxious, we feel self-doubt, we feel guilt, dread, anxiety, like all the
Quick, get rid of it.
feelings, embarrassment. We're like, oh my God, something's gone wrong, we have to get rid of it. And we're like, no, actually, once upon a time, it probably had an evolutionary requirement, it kept us alive.
Yeah.
Only this email, this conversation, this putting your hand up at school or in a meeting isn't actually going to kill you. So that kind of primal instinct doesn't need to keep running the show.
No, exactly. And yeah, that's a big part of it, that all emotions are okay, all emotions are normal. It's what you
Yeah,
do with the emotion that matters, and you've got a choice there. And that can be really hard because people think, no, I don't. I don't have a choice.
yeah,
This thing happened. This person was rude to me. I got angry, and it is hard. It's hard to take that beat in between,
yeah,
and I know that as a parent, there's times when
yeah,
I reacted before I even realize it, and it's difficult, but it takes practice, and slowly you can just take that little step back and just think, okay, there's something else I could do right now, or something else I could think right now that's going to
yeah,
be, a little bit more helpful, maybe. In fact, I've just been creating some stuff today and thinking about this, this idea that thoughts feel so powerful and strong. We assume they're facts, very, very
yes,
strong thought, oh, this, my friend didn't call me, they must not like me anymore, or they're
yeah,
selfish, or and
yeah,
we do that. We jump to those conclusions because of the evolutionary aspect of trying to keep us safe and alive and
yeah,
connected in a community, and it makes sense. But yeah, sometimes our brains aren't helping us. So it's just being able to
yeah,
kind of be aware of the thought. So there's a superpower and hero cards called thought catch. So that's just teaching children to just be aware of them, because how many of us actually go about our day-to-day life and have no idea what's going on in our heads? Thoughts are an
yeah,
abstract idea. So that helps kids just be aware of their thoughts. And then thought
mm,
swap is just that simple thing of, is there another way of looking at this?
Yeah.
What's the evidence for that thought? Is there another more helpful, balanced thought that I can
Yeah.
add? And it takes practice, and it's not sort of lots and lots of positive thoughts because our brains, we can't trick our brains, we can't,
Yeah.
and sometimes that the thought is right, and then there's something else we can do. We can accept the thought, and there's we have a different superpower for that too. But yes, I think what you said about taking away a bit of the power, a bit of the strength of that thought, we might not fully
Yeah.
change it, but we just take the spotlight off it a little bit, and that can be so powerful.
Yeah. And I don't think until you experience that pause and that shift, I don't
Mm.
think people realize how fucking powerful it actually.
Yeah, no. I mean, I didn't until my training actually. When I did my
Yeah.
CT training, I remember the simple thing of just what would you say to a friend in this situation? I know that's quite a well-known sort of
Yeah.
technique to suggest to people, but I do that now in my everyday life.
Yes.
And it is so powerful because I'll realize how unfair I'm being on myself, how when
Yeah.
something goes wrong, I'm attributing it to personal reasons. It's my fault. Whereas if it was a friend, I'd be telling them, no, 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 it's the situation, or it's this,
Yeah.
or of course you can't be blamed. So it just shifts that perspective, and you kind of, I don't know, you sort of take yourself out of the emotion of the situation, and you can be
Yeah.
a bit more logical. But yeah, it's not always easy. And I think one of the things I talk about in hero cards is sometimes we do just need to calm our nervous systems first, because
Yeah.
when we're heightened, it's really
Yes.
hard. We're going to jump to conclusions. All the cognitive biases are going to kick in. We're going
Absolutely.
to, do the old patterns, and that's, myself included. That's okay. That's normal. But when we've had a chance to calm, then we can, yeah, perhaps just shift a little bit and think of things in a slightly different way. It's
Yeah.
so far.
It is so powerful. And also what I found myself doing more and more recently, and to begin with, this felt really weird. Like honestly, as I started to do it, I was like, oh, this is cringy. But I've got used to it now and it feels so good, is I praise myself.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like when my brain comes up with an idea, I'm like, oh, thanks for that, brain.
yes, yes. I love that. Yes,
Or if I've got up and I've actually got myself out of bed and taken myself off on a walk, I will then go, well done, Nikki.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
not in a sarky patronise, but in a, well, that was great. Well done.
Yes. And if you're
Be,
getting a benefit from that and
yeah,
actually seeing that that's true, then you're not sort of trying to, it's not like the affirmations in front of the mirror where you sort of think, I'm telling myself I'm amazing, but I don't really believe it. So that
yeah,
doesn't really
yeah,
work. It's something that's realistic.
yeah,
And as soon as you get that reward as well in the
yeah,
brain, that little neurotransmitter reward, then that motivates you to want to keep doing it. So
yeah,
nice little habit that kicks in that's, yeah, like a gratitude exercise. It's
yeah, that's
yeah,
it. And it
great brain.
just makes you feel a bit better.
Yeah, yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But it
I
is,
feel that now, Nikki. I'm just going to write that down.
yeah, write that down. And but what I love about what you're saying is the word practice.
Mm,
Practice. Practice.
yeah,
This isn't,
yeah,
I love it. Yoda says this, doesn't he, in Star Wars? There's no try, there's just do, or something like that.
yeah,
He says something
yes,
like that.
yeah,
Because a
love that.
lot of people that would say, oh, yeah, I'll try that. But as if that's just going to you've got an excuse then. Oh, it didn't work the first time I tried it.
Yeah,
This is not these skills, and they are skills that no one taught us, that we all get to learn, but will only be of benefit should you practice it.
yes,
And it is
absolutely.
exactly that. It is a practice of recognizing, oh, okay, I could have been kinder, or I could have, not have reacted, or I could have just that if I'd have given myself that time to pause and breathe,
Mm,
like that really is our control point, I think.
yeah,
And
yes,
I think then it's not that you're necessarily not going to choose anger. I'm just thinking like dealing with my teenage boys, they tend to take their socks off. The socks land on the floor. They do not move them for days unless I move them. Now, I get frustrated with this, right? So, and especially just before my period, if I'm premenstrual, I have no tolerance. So,
mm,
but it's not then that I don't become frustrated, is that I don't choose to behave from that frustration.
yeah,
And
yeah,
having that moment to pause, take a breath, own that you're frustrated. Like you said, I don't think this is always about being positive. I'm like, no, no, no. Being a minimalist, I don't like the socks being on the fucking floor for days.
Yeah.
Taking that breath, but from there going, right, gorgeous
Yeah.
teenagers, now please pick up your socks.
Yes.
Like, get
Yeah.
off your screens, pick up your socks, or there's going to be a consequence. That's acting from a calmness. I haven't got rid of the frustration, but I'm acting from a calmness. Whereas if I'd have said exactly the same words from frustration, it just blows everything up and makes it more dramatic.
Yes, no, I think that's absolutely right. And yeah, so you're not saying I can't have this emotion, I've got to stifle this frustration because all
Yes,
emotions are normal and okay and need to come out. But yeah, it's just taking the heat out of that moment and choosing um a reaction that is not going to create further problems down the line. And it's not easy. It's not
yeah,
easy. I sometimes feel like, I've reacted before I realize it. But it's like going back to what you just said, that practice, it's a cliche, but you wouldn't go to the gym and expect to lift a weight immediately and then see a massive muscle. And
exactly.
it's the same with the brain, we are creating new sort of newer pathways and new habits, new ways of thinking, and that's going to take time to do. But being compassionate towards ourselves and just learning from each situation. It's a bit of trial and error, isn't it? I mean, I have with my children, I've had to work out, okay, that didn't work. Next time I'll try something else
Yeah.
and little things that'll diffuse it. And yeah, I think practice.
And then you do something that works for one, and then you do it again for the other, and it just didn't work for the other.
Yeah.
So you're
Or
like,
it worked
oh,
last week and now it doesn't work. And yeah, I mean, it's just a constant state of, and I've learned with my children, I wrote an article recently about, the fact that being a psychologist, I thought, well, I'm gonna have more of an idea. Nope, absolutely
yeah,
clue.
yeah,
And it's just been a case of, all the textbooks in the world aren't going to perhaps be right for me in that moment and my children in that moment and whatever
yes,
they're feeling. So yeah, it's the most important thing for me is not beating myself up and having that guilt when I do, not respond in the way I'd hoped to, but
yeah,
working out, okay, what was going on. And I think one of the big things is, we spend so much time trying to change what's in our environment and try to prevent the things that are cause stress. And we can't, can we? We can't control
no,
those things. What we can control is what's in here. And
yeah.
actually, if we spent the same amount of time being the architects of this as opposed to the environment, yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And for those of you that are listening, not watching, Emmy was pointing to her head and her
Oh
brain as she
yes,
was saying
sorry,
this.
yeah. This is the newbie on the podcast learning.
It's fine. It's fine. Um, right. So I would really love, and I think this is going to be uncomfortable possibly for both of us, and it may be really uncomfortable for everybody listening. And I'm going to invite us to all to lean into that discomfort because I think if we have this open conversation, it's going to actually free so many people. And that's intrusive thoughts,
Mm, yep.
which we all have that nobody talks about because we find them so fucked up
Hmm.
that then we think it's just us having that intrusive thought. And so because no one talks about it, no
Mm,
one realizes everybody's having them.
yes. Yes.
And there's a thought that I have quite often actually, and it's when I'm driving and
Hmm.
I'll be driving along and the birds will be singing, and then all of a sudden my brain will go off to I think I shared this when we were chatting on your sofa a couple of weeks or months ago now actually. Um, my brain goes off to this scenario where my two boys are being held hostage by a terrorist,
Hmm.
and the terrorist is going to shoot one of them, and I have to decide which one they're going to shoot.
Mm,
And I'm driving along going, or or the other one I have quite often is, well, if that lorry just totally wiped me out and I didn't come back home, what would Blue do? That's my youngest. And then it goes off into this scenario of how he would, after a while he'd get confused and then he'd be like, well, where's mum? And then he'd have to wait for dad to, and you just like, or I'm trying to think of another example where you have like a sexual thought about
mhm.
something that would
Yep.
like an uncle or
Yep.
a teacher, or I'm just trying to come up with an example, but my brain's not giving me one at the moment, probably because it's too scared to admit it. Thank you,
Yes.
brain,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
keeping me safe. But
Yeah.
yeah, let's talk about that because I know that that has come up in your practice over your experience. And yeah, should we get into that uncomfortable
Yes.
conversation of intrusive
Yes, I'm
thoughts?
so glad that you've raised this because it's frustrated me for years. And again, I think that this should be taught to children. I saw so many patients that had had years and years of shame and anxiety and depression because of thoughts that are totally normal. We
Yeah,
all have intrusive thoughts. There was a famous study done years ago, and I actually used to print out the results of this and give it to patients to prove this, where they asked a large number of members of the general public to anonymously tick yes to whether or not they'd had a whole series of different intrusive thoughts. And it ranged from having sex with your dad or stabbing your partner, all sorts of, what we all agree are horrendous thoughts, things that
yeah,
we'd never do, but we think that because we've had the thought, we give it meaning.
yeah.
We think, does that mean because I've had the thought, I actually want to do it or would do it? Even if I
Yes.
didn't mean to do it, would I feel a compulsion to do it? Oh God, what does that say about me?
Yeah.
I'm sick. I'm a bad person. There's something wrong with me. But actually, when they did this survey, it came back to show, and this was thousands of people, that everybody has had all of these thoughts. It's
Yes.
normal. It's common. We all have them. And as soon as you learn that, it was this huge relief of like, oh, okay. And the difference is between, you know, um, most of us and people that would then end up with a form of OCD, intrusive thoughts, and end up coming to see me would be the meaning that they attach to it. So they would think,
Yeah.
I had that thought, that means either there's something seriously wrong with me, oh my God,
Yeah.
or what if I actually do something? So the thing of driving, often people would say, I'm driving down the motorway, and I just had this thought if I'll just suddenly rear and cause a massive crash. And then that
Yeah.
fear, will I just do it? Am I about to do it? Or
Yeah.
going along a cliff side. In fact, I remember going on a walk in Devon years ago, and this woman was, we were walking down, it was quite a steep sort of cliff walk down to the beach, and she was clinging to this rock, and her husband was saying, can you help her? I don't know what's going on. And I said, okay, yeah, I'm a psychologist. I can see if I can help her, what's going on. And it wasn't that she thought she was going to slip. She could see there was a path, and actually she could like everybody else, she could happily walk, but she thought she might just jump. So the
Yeah.
thought, will I just throw myself off? And obviously,
Yeah.
she wasn't going to do that. But the possibility, the notion that she could, meant that she was clinging to this rock with this fear that she would just, and she had no suicidal ideation or any thoughts or anything, but there was
Yeah.
that fear. So yeah, so for some people, if that becomes, I had a patient years ago who had the intrusive thought that he could put his baby in the bin. So
Yeah.
as a result of that, he stopped going out because he might see a bin because he thought, what if I actually do that? He had to get rid of all the bins in his house. Obviously, he loved his baby desperately.
Yeah.
He'd never
Yeah.
have done it. But the notion, because he had the thought, he thought that meant that on some weird level, he might do it.
Yeah.
I'd say to people quite the opposite. If you're worried about the thought, it just shows what a wonderful, empathic, compassionate person you are. And
Yeah.
we all have them. But most people go, ugh, that was a horrible thought. Move on. That was
Yeah.
very nice. And obviously, it can also get to the stage where for people, that thought just won't stop coming because we can't control thoughts. If you try not to have a thought, there's the famous experiment I used to do with my patients where I'd say, in the next minute, try not to think about a pink elephant. Do you think you can?
Yes.
And they'll start by thinking, yeah, I can not think of a pink elephant. And then obviously they're just constantly raising their hand. And I'd say, had you thought of pink elephants at all this morning before I mentioned it? No. Okay. But as soon as you try not to have a thought, you can't stop. So I do the same thing. If you had a horrendous thought like you did in the car, try
Yeah.
not to have that thought. It's going to keep coming. And obviously that's going to make you really anxious. So then there are other techniques you can use to help to kind of diffuse it. And sometimes it is actually almost like a form of PTSD where you have to almost tell the story in your mind of how things will be okay, how it will, the story will go in a different, it won't be the horror movie that you've created in your mind. But yes,
Yeah.
I wish we taught children the fact that, or young people, that this is normal. And I'm going to be
Yeah.
including it in our teen edition of the cards because yeah, I had patients coming to see me and the relief when I said, "Oh, that's just totally normal."
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I told anyone, like you said, the shame, they hadn't. So yeah, very important.
Yeah.
Very important.
It's really interesting because as you were saying then, especially about the stabbing, yeah, the amount of times that my brain has just gone, what would it be like to get that knife and just push it into that body? And I'm like,
Yeah.
let's not go there. Like you just like it's kind of crazy, isn't it? And this is why I've chosen and then practiced finding the brain really funny because like and why I get my clients to name their that sort of voice, that primitive part of their brain. It's not
Yeah.
quite that basic, but
I love it.
like so I'm like, oh, look at Sue, like thinking those Sue's my primal brain. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and especially when she starts judging people, like if I'm driving down the road and then I look across and then I see, like, I hear in my head, oh my God, what is she wearing? And then I'm like, hang on a minute,
Yeah.
Nikki does not want to be that person.
No,
Like, I don't. I don't,
no.
I don't, I think fair fucking play, wear everything that you want to wear and be proud of it.
Yeah.
Um, but that brain, that part of us that we actually don't get to control, what we do get to control is how, like you say, what meaning, how attached we get, how much we then choose to believe that thought or that sentence when it appears.
Yes. How much we put it on a pedestal with a massive spotlight on it
Yeah.
and go,
Yeah.
that must be the truth because it
Yeah.
feels, and I think so often we'll have an emotional reaction and we think that because we've had that emotional reaction, something must be seriously wrong because of the our
Yeah.
body's gone into red alert. Therefore, there must be something bad happening. But yeah, it's the old another cliche of the burnt toast fire alarm going off. Sometimes our
Yeah.
brains, because they were designed to keep us alive, they go off when they don't need to. So
Yeah.
sometimes we get things wrong, and that's because we're processing thousands and thousands of bits of information every day. And so our brain has to make shortcuts because there's too much to process. We haven't evolved in 200,000 years. We've still got the same kind of brain
Yeah.
that we had when there wasn't the vast amounts of information to be processed.
Yeah.
So because of needing to make so many shortcuts, we inevitably make mistakes. So if
Yeah.
we talk about our brains, like you say, as separate to us, mine's called Betty, by the way.
Ah, love it.
Matrix and Etty, so I think of them together as Betty.
Yeah.
Betty sounds quite sort of sweet and comical, so somehow I can, I can somehow that she seems cuddly even when she's being annoying and not serving me. Or I did hear,
Yeah.
I think it was Julia Samuel, the psychotherapist, called it the shitty committee in your brain. I like that one as well.
Yes.
Shitty committee. Yeah, just that ability to be able to sort of say, okay, I don't sure I agree with that. That's not who I am, or that's maybe not the correct thought, but it's understandable. You were designed to keep me safe. And as soon as you get how the brain works and how it's doing it, we are designed to focus on the negative because we need to, because that's what keeps us safe and
Yes.
connected in the community. Um, our brains are designed to be that way, then yeah, that it takes away that self-blame. I worked for years in services supporting people before having bariatric surgery and people that were looking to lose weight. So it was sort of CBT
Mm.
for weight loss. And one of the big things I used to say is let's stop talking about willpower and self-control because that's all blame. That's all, it's my fault. It's my fault. But actually your brain is very powerfully designed to want quick rewards because there was a time
Yeah.
with no food. So
Yeah.
you could go days without any food. So your brain is designed to want you to have high calorie food. It's not your fault. This is your
Yeah.
physiology. This is the way
Yeah.
we were designed. So stop with the self-control willpower. Let's just work out why our brain's doing that and how we can bypass it and create a new, way of doing things that doesn't lead to that. But yeah, I love the idea of Sue and Betty getting together.
Sue and Betty, the
Late night
shitty
over a
committee.
cocktail. Yeah, yeah, as part of the shitty committee. Yeah.
Shitty committee. And they get together and fuel each other. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm curious, Emmy. The next edition of Hero Cards will be for teens.
Mm.
What would be the different? I mean, obviously, the visually a teen is going to be attracted to something different to a small child. But is there a I'm just curious about whether there's a difference in development terminology? Like, what would be the difference?
Yeah, oh, there's huge differences. I mean, first of all, I'm very aware that a lot of teenagers will just be like, no. I mean, I have a teenager, so I'm, aware that the idea of this may not appeal, and that's okay. But we have been surprised by how many teenagers have actually been using the original hero cards, which is aimed sort of up to kind of 12, and have found it really helpful. So I think this is all part and parcel of the same conversation that the more we talk about these things, hopefully the more it's normalized that it's okay. And, and maybe it's something that is on the shelf and gets kind of prodded a few times and ignored and eventually comes out. But the main difference with the teen version, so it'll have largely the same kind of format with stories, but each of the stories will be very relatable. We're going to have teenagers help us design the whole thing so they can tell us that's boring, that's like not how I
Yeah.
feel, or what, realistic. And all of the stories will be things that teens can relate to. So we've got stuff on identity, on body image, on exam and school pressures, on friendship pressures, on intrusive thoughts, and the fact that they're
Yeah.
normal. So it will all 10 of the stories will be something that in my experience, and I've had a lot of experts who've helped me in the development of this. So we've had childhood counselors, and we will be testing these as we did the original hero cards. We tested with 50 families. We will test this with teens to make sure it lands well, and that we've hopefully encompassed 10 of the sort of key things that are really, making life tough for them right now. And then obviously it'll
Yeah.
be adapted so that it's for at the right level, so the version we've got at the moment is appealing to kids. So we will make it. Yeah. And the idea is that all of the superpowers, there's 10, even if only one or two resonate for a teenager, I see that, and they use only one, I see that as a huge win. So, we will make
Yes.
them
Yeah.
very powerful. This is very different to the other stuff that's out there. This isn't, gratitude journals. This is really, science-based tools that are usually reserved for therapy, but
Yeah.
now for the home, because there's no reason why they can't be. It's one of my bugbears, this idea that all of these techniques, you have to be a psychologist to deliver them. It's absolute rubbish. And also,
Yeah.
you need to be an adult to understand this stuff. CBT can be beneficial for children as young as 5. And yes, some of the concepts will be a little bit abstract for some children, but HeroCast doesn't have an expiry date. So the idea is, even if it doesn't quite land right now, come back to it in a year or so's time. And we've
Yeah.
got different levels. We've got like sort of basic level for kids and then slightly more advanced, because the idea of thoughts in of itself is quite abstract, isn't it, for some kids? But that's okay. And I talk about something called the landing effect, this idea that if we plant the seeds of these conversations now, even the idea of
Yes.
your thoughts not being facts, then that can be built on in the teenage years so that it's not a new idea. It's something that, so yeah, that's the kind of the idea around it.
Yeah. Exciting. I'm excited for you.
Thank
So,
you.
what was it like being a solo parent to neurodiverse girls and then setting up your business? Like, what was that journey like?
Oh,
Or is
goodness,
like
Vicky.
so different?
Yes. Ask me in a few years and I'll probably be able to it has been, well, actually it's been a blessing for me, having this business, because I think I love it. It doesn't feel like work. It's a passion, it's a hobby.
Yeah.
It's well, it's not now, it's a real business, but it's so lovely to be doing something that I love and enjoy and really
Yeah.
believe in and think can make a real difference. So actually, it has been a nice sort of a goal. If I had a lot of patients over years actually who would come to see me, and I'd often feel as though actually what they were lacking, I never say this, we obviously would explore it together, but I'd often think, I wonder if actually what they're lacking in their life right now more than anything is meaning and something they're working
Yes.
towards and a sense of achievement. There's a great book which I'm sure many of your listeners will have heard of, Man's Search for Meaning,
Oh,
Viktor
Viktor
Frankl.
Frankl,
Yeah.
so powerful.
Logotherapy. So he was a psychiatrist. He was in the concentration camps. He learned that people that were living longer of the prisoners were those that still had a goal. He would smuggle in bits of paper and encourage them to, keep writing and keep working on. And he believes that, having meaning, having something that you're working towards is hugely beneficial for your mental health. And for me,
Yeah.
certainly when I had low moments of parenting, because I was, gosh, I started parenting on my own when my twins were 18 months old and my eldest was 4. So I was on my
Yeah.
own. And yeah, this gave me something that I was building towards. And so it was really therapeutic for me to have
Yeah.
that. It's a lot, it's a juggle. And definitely always saying to friends, you can't be the perfect mum, the perfect business person. I just have to do what I can. But that's been
Yeah.
the big thing. And one of the things I used to say to patients, and I learned so much for myself from my training, um, being good enough. Don't have
Yeah.
to be perfect, just being good enough and letting myself off the hook. I just think the
Yeah.
kindness thing, the self-kindness thing. And I hope that children get that from hero cards more than anything else. Because negative thoughts and worries, that impacts everything in your life. So
Yeah.
yeah, learn new ways of thinking. It affects everything.
Yeah.
Way.
Oh my gosh, that's a beautiful one to end on. I love that. Is there anything, Emmy, that we haven't talked about that you think is relevant?
Oh,
Oh,
question. Oh, I just love that there's a conversation about this because I think that well-being obviously is a huge machine now that it wasn't, when I was in clinical practice, 15 years ago. And that's brilliant. I love that it is. I love that we're talking about these things. I love that my kids come home and they're doing stuff in school. But yeah, I just think that this idea of what's going on in your head, because I think stress management and mindfulness and gratitude, all of that type of stuff is wonderful and very
yeah.
powerful. But if you're not changing what's going on here, you're never really getting to the nitty-gritty of the problem. You're dealing
Yes.
with symptoms, you're dealing with the cause. And
Yeah.
so, I just think that is so, so important. And I don't see that talked about. And there is this idea of, oh, that's either you can't do it, you can't change the way you think, or that you've got to, have years of therapy and you just don't. Simple
Yeah.
practices like just journaling your thoughts. I have a little thing that I do. I talk to myself in the car out loud. I know I've admitted
Yeah.
that to lots of people. Brilliant. I talk to myself out loud as if I'm talking to a friend. If I just
Yeah.
need stuff out, because talking about it, I often think, oh, now I understand because I actually said it out loud. Or
Yeah.
write uses a different part of your brain. So you can make
Yeah.
sense of what's going in your head just by writing it. So I'll write sometimes reams or just bullet points of what's going on because it's spaghetti in my head until I get it out and then I can look at it more objectively. But I also have a little acronym that I use that's thinking, feeling, hoping, dreaming. So at any given
Oh,
point when I'm driving around, I'll think, what am I thinking right now? What am I feeling right now? What am I hoping for today? What kind of day do I want to have? What do I want to feel and achieve maybe? And what am I dreaming? What's the long-term thing? And it just keeps me on
yeah.
track of, and it might be simple things like, I don't know, I want to arrange a nice trip away camping with my kids, or I want to, it doesn't have to be big things. But yeah, it just gives me that little bit of jumping out of the rat race hamster wheel and just being able to look back on my life as if I'm looking externally at a movie and think,
Yeah.
yeah, oh, actually, that's not in alignment with who I want to be today or what I want to achieve. Let's do less
Yeah.
of that. And let's not people please and say yes to everything. Let's do this
Yes.
stuff. So yeah, I think I just love that we're having a conversation about this. And I think a lot of people think, well, how do you change? First of all, it's awareness, definitely. That's step one. And then it's just practicing like, is there another way of looking at it? What's the evidence for those thoughts? What would I say to a friend in this situation?
Yeah.
And you don't have to 100% stop believing the original belief and wholly
Yeah.
believe the other one. But if you're giving it a little bit less power, it can eventually, with practice, like you say, make a real change to
Yeah.
how you think.
It really can. One of my favorite questions as well that I ask myself all the time now, because I used to try and argue with that, like the shitty thoughts or the self-doubt, and I used to try and get rid of it. And now I just go, okay, well, if that wasn't true, what would
Mm,
I do differently?
Yes, I love
So,
that. Mm,
and it works for everything. It's like, oh, I don't know how to cook a flapjack. Okay, well, if that wasn't true, what would I do differently? Well, I'd ask, Google, or I'd Pinterest, or now ChatGPT, because that is
yeah,
ever. Do you mean? Or I'd phone my friend, or I would put my hand up, or I would just start a conversation, or I would go and try something. And so then you just go and do it. So then
yes.
you're not getting rid of the thought, you're not engaging with the thought, you're just questioning, if that wasn't true, what would I do differently, or what would be my options? Okay, let's go and try that.
I love that. And that kind of relates actually to, I've got 2 points I'd love to make based on that. So the first is this idea. So with cognitive behavioural therapy, and I don't, by the way, believe that this is the panacea of all ills. It's one tool.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for everything, but it can be
Yeah.
very beneficial. And for anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's just this idea that our thoughts and what we do, our behaviours affect how we feel and vice versa. It's a
Yeah.
very simple concept. The idea with the cognitive, so the thoughts bits, sometimes we can't, our thoughts aren't going to shift until we do something different. And it's interesting. I had a teacher when I was doing my training, and she said, actually, I feel like I could go around in circles with patients with the cognitive bit, and they'll never really change the way they're thinking until they do something different. And
Yes.
the change in what they're doing then changes the way they think. We think we're sold this idea that we act based on our thoughts, but often it's the other way around. We create
Yes.
thoughts based on what we're doing. So often I'll say to people, the most important thing you can do is do something different, and then you'll
Yeah.
feel different. Sometimes the thinking bit isn't making you feel any better. Changing the way you
Yeah.
think doesn't always change how you're feeling. It's the doing that will do that. And then the other
Yeah.
point I wanted to make was just this idea that sometimes, you know, the reality is that something rubbish is happening, and we can't think of it in a more positive way, and we can't. And then
Yeah.
it's about acceptance. So there's something called acceptance and commitment therapy act, which I've incorporated into one of the superpowers called leaves on a stream, which is quite a well-known tool. And it's just this idea of being able to observe that thought,
Yeah.
say that's okay, that thought's there. I'm not going to try and not have get rid of that thought, but I'm also not going to pick it up and look at it. So imagine leaves going passing you, floating down a stream. I can see it's there, that's okay, but I'm not going to pick it up and look at it. I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah.
Or balloons floating off into sky, feathers, whatever analogy you
Yeah.
want to imagine. Just that idea that sometimes maybe that thought is true, but we don't want to go in a spiral of, giving it too much of our attention that it keeps our energy down. So it's being able
Yeah.
to let it go as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think
I always think grief is a perfect example of that one. Like if you are experiencing a bereavement and you have the thought, I miss them, I'm never
mm,
going to see them again,
mm,
and you feel sad, I
mm.
don't think it's appropriate to try and change that thought.
No,
Like that
gosh,
seems totally
no,
unethical to me. It's like,
absolutely.
there, if
Yeah.
you love someone, you
Yes.
want to have, I will miss them. You want to
Yes.
have that
Yeah.
thought. So then it's not a thinking thing, it's a feeling thing. And then learning how to just sit with that emotion and not frightened of it, or not, try and get rid of it, is so much more powerful than. So I think it is interesting, isn't it? Because people think, oh, I can just change my thoughts and then I'm always going to change it to something positive. And I don't think that just is not the
No,
goal. It's
no, no,
just not the goal.
no, absolutely.
Sometimes, but sometimes not.
No, no, and also this idea. I know people talk about sort of toxic positivity. I'm not sure if I like
Yeah.
that term, but it's not changing negative thoughts into positive thoughts. It's changing them into slightly more balanced, helpful ones. That
Yes.
that so it might not be an extreme shift. It's just they didn't call me. Rather than jumping to the conclusion that's because they don't care or they don't like me anymore, it's okay, they've got a lot going on right now.
Yeah.
I forgot to call someone. It wasn't because I didn't like them. I just forgot, it's
Yeah.
okay. So it's just that little shift in thinking. Is there another way? Yeah, actually, I guess there's that. And it doesn't take all the heat off the original thought, but it just, that curiosity, it just takes a little bit of that off. And it's, yeah, so powerful.
Yeah.
Um,
So
mm,
good. So good. Well, I'm really excited because I get to see you in person on Friday.
Yay!
So it's not like I'm saying
Always just
goodbye
such
forever.
good energy, Nikki. Love being around you. It's like a top up of sunshine. It's just feel
Oh,
good.
thank you. Yeah, it's going to be hot. Bring your fans.
Oh
So
goodness.
I'm going
Right.
to get to see you on Friday, but for everybody else listening, we
Mm.
will put Emmy's details below. We'll put a link to the hero card so you can go and buy your family, and you'll probably learn a lot more from it than you just as much as your kids. Um, so we'll put a link to that so you can follow Emmy and you can look up hero cards if you want to make that investment. Um, so it just leaves me to say thank you so much. This was such a lovely way to start my day.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. It's been so enjoyable. I mean, we could chat all day, but
We
it's
could,
been lovely
yes.
to yes, important things to talk about, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, you are very welcome. And everybody else, I'll see you next week. Bye.